So let's look at a few antennas, and let's start with the directional antennas. The more common one you'll find indoor is what we call the patch antenna. It's called patch because it looks like a patch. Typically you put it either on the ceiling or sometime, depending on how they're made, you can put them on the wall. This one, for example, is what we call an 8.5 dBi patch, and it's a wall mount, so it's supposed to be mounted on the wall. The result is that it's going to radiate pretty much one direction on the opposite direction from the wall, and that's pretty nice for coverages where you want to shoot far and there is something behind you that doesn't need a coverage and you don't want any reflection on this. So the radiation pattern is going to be something like this. So in both planes you see you are going to boost the signal in one direction. It's going to be pretty circular in that direction, but it's not going to send too much at the back. However, it always sends a little bit at the back, as you can see here. There is always a little bit at the back of the antenna. And that's because it's metallic material, so there is always some tiny reflections inside the fabric of the antenna. That makes that there is always some back reflection, even if it's a very directional antenna. So that patch is very common. You'll find it very commonly in halls, large hallways, large meeting rooms, where you want to cover a wide area and you won't shoot from the wall. Another common one, even more powerful, let's say more gain, is what we call the Yagi antenna from its inventors, Yagi Uday, at the beginning of the 20th century. So it looks like a tube when you buy it, typically from a vendor like Cisco, but if you look inside, in fact, it's a comb type of structure. And the idea is that each tooth of the comb is going to amplify and reflect the signal coming from the previous tooth. And that's what altogether makes it very directional and very powerful. The tube around is just to protect them. If you have some old analog TV, they were using exactly that type of antenna with a different size, of course, because it was a different frequency range, but that's the same principle. So this one, as an example, is a 13.5 dBi, so you see it's more than a patch, and because it's more than a patch, as you can guess, the signal is more focused in one direction, and it's more directional. The back reflection that you see in the patch, you also see it in this one and all directional antennas as well. And we call them the butterflies. So that's the butterfly effect, this reflection inside the material that makes that some signal bounces back at the back or on the side of the antenna. They're again unavoidable. Most of the time you don't take them into account when you measure your radiation directions. You only look at where you want to cover, but in some cases you may be aware of these butterflies and use them to your advantage if you want to cover something, for example the foot of a door, and you have the antenna above and you know there's a butterfly effect just below the antenna. That can be useful for you to be covering right there where the antenna is supposed to be pointing downward. Okay, so that's the Yagi. You'll find it outdoor commonly. You'll find it also in warehouses when you want to cover long aisles or long hallways. It's very powerful, so it's typically something that has a long range, a few hundreds of meters. That's not something you would find for a meeting room, for example. Last common type of very directional antenna, the dish antenna. So that's something you've seen if you have any satellite TV. That's what they use, dish. Of course, this is a different frequency range, so the shape and the size are going to be different, but the purpose and logic is the same. This one, for example, is a 28 dBi dish. So you see 28 dBi, so that's very powerful. So of course, the game is to send and receive only in one direction. That is typical of outdoor links when you want to have a point-to-point communication with two devices. It's very, very narrow. It does have some butterfly effects like the others. And of course, the radiation pattern doesn't give you the scale, right? For any power, the radiation pattern for this one will be much larger because you go very much farther away than if you were to use a patch where you would stop right there. And the concept is the same. It's the directivity that we're going to represent here, not the distance at which you reach. Okay, so that's only outdoor. You will never find that kind of antenna indoor. And if you do, contact me, send me a picture. Shouldn't be there.